An FDA ruling approving the sale of genetically modified salmon has recharged the debate over the future of our food. Critics call the modified salmon Frankenfish, but GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, have been part of our diet for years. Most of them are corn, soy, and other crops with added DNA from other organisms to increase their resistance to disease. The Grocery Manufacturers Association says up to 80% of processed food sold in the U.S. is genetically modified, and most of it is not labeled.
Monsanto is one of the world's largest producers of genetically modified seeds. The company is committed to innovation in agriculture, but critics say it should be more transparent. Monsanto CEO Hugh Grant is with us at the table. We're pleased to have him. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You know the concern about this, and obviously you have to speak to it. Polls show people, citizens across the country are concerned. And for those who see that concern or express that concern, how do you prove them otherwise? And what is it exactly that you believe?
Well, we're, as you know, we're an agricultural company. We sell seeds to farmers who make harvests, and those harvests end up in plates around the world. Genetically modified organisms have been around for actually next year's the 20th anniversary, so billions of acres, trillions of portions of food, and probably the most studied food products in the history of food production. So I feel confident about their safety, but as you say, because of this, the continued concern, we probably should do a better job in dialogue and
you mean more transparency, more conversation, more what?
Well, I think more conversation. I think a part of the challenge is there's such misinformation on where food comes from.
What's the misinformation?
People between what arrives in a plate and what farmers do today, we're so far 2% of the country feeds 98%. So I think for companies like mine, we've got our work cut out in explaining what agriculture is and where food comes from.
Are you in favor of mandatory labeling?
I'm in favor of some federal standards. So I think a broad umbrella in labeling that's based on science and based on facts, I'd welcome. My concern, Charlie, is that a lot of the labeling debate so far has been state by state, so independence, different labels in different states, and that results in confusion instead of transparency, and it results in more expense. So if there was an overall standard, kind of like the organic, if you look today at the organic food standard, something that mirrored that, I'd be in favor of.
But to Charlie's point about transparency, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm concerned about the time. Your company spent over $4 million to defeat a GMO labeling ballot initiative in Colorado and over $6 million in Oregon. So if you're for transparency, why spend so much money to make sure that it doesn't happen?
Because a deep concern that we end up with a patchwork quilt of state-by-state regulations where you end up in a place where you can't move a can of soup from one state to the other. I mean, you talk to the food manufacturers, we're a seed company, but when you talk to the food manufacturers, the concern is, how do you move food between states? So if you fast forward, we've been at this for 20 years, if you think forward, you think about food security and the challenges of climate change, these are tools that we're going to have in our back pocket. And I'm concerned that if you build a patchwork of state-by-state legislation, we're never going to move forward. And the consumer ends up paying $400 to $500 more a year in their grocery bills because you get state-by-state regulation. So I like the idea of something that covers the country.
Isn't it in your interest to get out front of this?
Yeah, that's why I'm talking to you here today.
Yeah, but you've got chain restaurants like McDonald's and Chipotle that are saying, listen, we're not going to use genetically modified items anymore. Are you having dialogue with them? What do they know?
Yeah, I think the change for us, real briefly, the change for us in the last couple of years is, I would always have said, we're a seed company. The restaurants are so far away, they're so far down the chain from us. I think more and more this is all interconnected. So we've been spending more time talking to the food companies, more time talking to consumers, because I think when you think about 2.5 billion new citizens arriving on our planet in the next 30, 40 years, we're going to need every tool in the box to satisfy
I'm curious, though. I mean, I know that your company deals primarily with seeds. Will you try the genetically modified salmon when it's out on the market?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
You have no problem with that?
No, I look forward to trying the salmon. It's not one of our products, but as I said earlier, we're going to need all of these elements for our kids and our grandkids.
Go ahead.
Well, quickly, we want to talk about Roundup. It's been approved in America by the EPA, something that your company manufactures. But many studies have looked at where it's funded or conducted by your company, that this chemical may actually could cause cancer, a chemical that is in this feed. Is there any sort of response to that? I mean, are we in fact poisoning our crops by using this Roundup
Not at all.
chemical?
Farmers depend on this. It's an important tool for growers in the fight against weeds. So every spring, when they plant a crop, the weeds are there. They're there every spring. So they need all the help they can get to combat those weeds. So I feel very good about the safety of the product. It's been studied extensively for more than 40 years. And if you think to the future, and there's two challenges. How do we feed a hungry world? How do we feed 9.5 billion people, number one? And number two, simultaneously, how do we fight climate change? And we are going to need all of these tools and all these products to help combat hungry nations.
And you have promised to go carbon neutral in crop production.
We made an announcement yesterday that we'll be carbon neutral in 6 short years. So for our entire footprint, we will be in a position where what we emit will be covered by what we consume.
Yeah, no one realistically expected you to say you didn't think your product was safe, but you can understand, or can you understand, why people are concerned?
Yeah, I think that the key for me, for Monsanto, and I think for agriculture in general, we need to do a better job explaining where food comes from.
All right.
Hugh Grant, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the invitation.